Hi, and welcome to Dead Times, the only
Blech.
the only horror movie podcast recorded live from a garden filled with snails. And I'm your host Peter, and as always with me is my pizza boy Tim. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing good. You're
Today,
you're already starting to run out, man. This is episode 3.
yeah, and today we're talking about the Slumber Party Massacre, the camp classic from 1982. Uh, so what was your initial thoughts about the Slumber Party Massacre?
I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Um, I spent most of it marveling at how improbably well it was made. Like I was watching and I was like it's really well shot for what it is. Um, and um, and most of the acting is pretty good across the board aside from Courtney. Um,
Poor Courtney. Poor Courtney and her Playboy or Playgirls.
Uh, which was is that a real thing?
Playgirl? Yes, it is in fact a real thing.
Okay.
Or at least it was. Uh,
Oh, hashtag feminism.
yeah.
Um,
It doesn't quite reach the levels. There's a Friday the 13th where one of the women is reading gay pornography for some reason. Um, but yeah, the fact that they apparently share Playgirls is pretty funny.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I thought it was. I didn't find it particularly evocative or frightening, but I thought for what it was a really fun little movie.
Yeah, when I initially had the idea to do this podcast, the first two movies I immediately wanted to do were Godzilla and Carrie, because those are both very meaty, um, rich, thematic, historical movies that show just the dramatic um, and cultural stakes that horror can aspire to. And then for the third episode, I wanted to go in the complete opposite direction and find something that would be on, say, Elvira or TNT's Monster Vision, or something that back when we had video stores you would find on the shelves in the horror section with some crazy box art. And yeah,
I'm sure.
the the Slumber Party Massacre pretty much fits that description. Um, uh,
The title almost sounds like a parody horror film that would be on in the background in The Simpsons or something like that.
yeah, this movie was actually originally written to be a parody along the lines of your scary movies type thing. And then someone took it and did, I guess, an uncredited draft where they turned it serious-ish, and then they
Ish.
filmed it as just a straight up serious movie, even though it gets completely ridiculous. Um, so let's start talking about the
That makes a lot.
characters. There are sort of two main characters. The first is Trish, and the second is Val. Um, Trish is the popular girl who's very nice, as opposed to I believe it's Kim who's the popular girl who's mean. Um, so what
Although
you
these are relative terms because pretty much everybody in this movie is pretty nice on the whole, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
yeah,
Um,
the meanest thing Kim says is that Val drinks too much milk.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, which is apparently enough for her to not be invited or to not want to invite Val to the slumber party. But I mean, it is a grievous sin to go to someone's house and drink all their milk. But um,
This is true.
so what do you think about Trish?
Um, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying because as refreshingly likable as the cast is, they are a little bit on the bland side, and so I'm trying to remember what things each character specifically did.
Uh,
Um,
well, yeah,
I
they don't
I remember
really
the
they don't really do much individually, and they really don't have that much of personality. Um,
No. Um, which is accurate to to teenage lives.
yeah. Uh,
But
well, like the good thing about Trish is that she really does want to invite Val to the slumber party, and it's only again I think it's Kim is the one that raises or that complains about her.
yeah.
Um, and then literally next door to her is Val, who is the new girl and is very hot, and everyone's jealous of her. Um, and she overhears the fact that they don't, or the fact that Kim doesn't want her at the slumber party, and so when Val invites her, she runs away crying. Um, any thoughts on Val?
I defer you to my earlier point. um, well, no, I like that that Val is um uh, still kind of the socially awkward new girl, despite being ludicrously pretty.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was kind of neat, and I thought her relationship with her sister was interesting.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I mean, they do share play, or they do share pornography with each other, so that's a healthy relationship right there.
and yeah, that's trust.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, I would not trust anyone with my pornography when I was a teenager. All right.
uh,
Meanwhile, there is an escaped maniac named Russ Thorne who murdered 12 people, I believe it was, uh, earlier this, or like years ago, and he's just escaped from prison or mental institution or whatever, and is wandering around their city killing people. I have to say,
The most bored workmanlike, professional, don't give a shit serial killer I've ever seen in a movie.
I have,
It's so passionless. He's just like, oh, this is what I got to do. It's like a 9 to 5.
yeah, I do have to. I love the first person he murders, which is the first person he murders is the hot phone repair woman. Um,
That's a thing.
and like he
Remember your first crush on the hot phone repair woman?
and the fact is that in this movie
Right, that's
there are a lot of phones that need repaired because they're constantly bringing up the phones aren't working. Like not
She
even
would have
when
been a good person to have around.
yeah.
Maybe that's dude. That's why he killed her first. That just blew my mind.
Mhm. But yeah, he literally just reaches from inside her van and pulls her inside and then drills a hole in her head. And again, no one notices, in particular the boys who are drooling over her. Uh,
Yeah, especially the sound of a power drill, really doesn't carry in this movie.
yeah. And there are a lot of people who are like blending things and listening to movies loudly so they can just conveniently not hear the sound of murder occurring like 3 feet away. Um, and then his second victim is just a random high school girl who somehow gets locked inside the school. Um, which he chases around school for a while, and then sort of just randomly, or she's very smart in the fact that she tries to stop the blood from leaking out of her hiding place, but she doesn't manage to get it all, and then he finds her.
Although that was one of my favorite moments in the movie. Was her pulling down the towel from wherever it was sitting, and he's standing a little ways away, and it just makes the like barest hint of a sound, just the friction of it coming off across the table, and he freezes and turns around.
Hmm.
Which I thought that was some legitimately cool filmmaking. It was a
Hmm.
good use of the sound design. It was a good angle. Yes, I don't know, I just thought I remember that leaping out at me again. And this movie's full of little moments like that
Hmm.
where I'm like, well, that was really well executed.
Hmm.
It's just not particularly frightening.
Yeah. Which after that we go back to the slumber part, or well, after that the slumber party starts up, and that's where we spend most of our time. Um, with a lot of girls changing into various nightshirts and horny boys coming by and the weird older neighbor sneaking around and people doing drugs and yeah, we spent a lot of time on this slumber party. Uh,
mean, it is called Slumber Party Massacre.
yeah. Um, so do you have anything to say about the lengthy middle section, I guess, where all the slumber party is taking place? Meanwhile, Val is or is the next house over, babysitting her sister, who is getting up to all sorts of shenanigans with boys.
Yeah, she's got like guys on the phone. There's the the aforementioned pornography. Um, uh, yeah, I did start to get a little tired of the fake jump scares in the middle bit of this movie. It was okay,
There
he's
are a lot of cats in this movie that are jumping out of a lot of
yeah,
things.
it's kind of everywhere. Um,
And that neighborhood has just cats wandering around everywhere because whenever anyone's outside, there's a cat like just randomly wandering. It's nice that they don't like forget about the cat after the cat scare because
this is true.
yeah, because anytime someone's walking around, there's a cat following them, or they're walking towards a cat, or yeah, there's just cats literally
Yeah.
everywhere in that neighborhood. You'd think someone would call the pound, but apparently they just love their cats.
Yeah, well, they can't because the phone woman is gone.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, I did appreciate that this movie really did kind of cut to the chase pretty quickly.
Mhm.
I was like, because we know where this is headed.
Mhm.
We know that people are gonna start getting killed off one by one, and
Mhm.
it doesn't waste too much time getting to that, which
Mhm.
which I thought was pretty refreshing.
Yeah. Um. So once the horny boys show up, everyone's been smoking the weed. I forget what exactly they called the particular strand of weed
But
that they
yeah,
were.
I can't. It was something. It was so dumb. Um, Maui Wowie, that was it.
Maui Wowie.
You go easy on the Maui Wowie girls.
Uh, and they decide to order a pizza. Um,
Which leads
to the best thing in
the
the.
best joke in the whole.
Okay.
Should we do it? Should we?
Yeah. One of the boys goes pizza when the pizza boy knocks on the door, and then they ask through the door, "How much is the pizza?" And I think it's like,
No, no, no. But the way that they phrase it is, what's the damage?
"What's the damage?" And I think it's $8 if I remember correctly. And then like everyone sort of congregates around the door, trying to score or trying to get $8 together. Meanwhile, one of the other girls is on the phone with her basketball coach talking about the game last night. Because this is the rare phone that actually works in the movie for at least a little
Yes.
bit. um, and then they open the door, and it's just two bloody holes where his eyes should be, and he falls over right in the living room. Oh, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Now, see, that was not what I was referring to. I was referring to the exchange before that because I remember how much they were trying to scrape together. Is that it was $6 because what happens is um, yeah, the boy walks up to the and through the door asks what's the damage, and then then a voice comes through the door, 6 so far.
Oh, yeah.
Did you
Oh,
not catch that?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and it's clear because we know because we don't hear a drill. We know the pizza boy's already dead, so that's what's his name,
Hmm.
who just decided to have a snappy comeback about how many people he's murdered so far off the cuff.
Oh, no, which the fact that what happens after the pizza boy is dead is my favorite thing about this movie. Um, which is okay. Now they know that people are being murdered, um, and so the two horny boys decide to run off in opposite directions. Um, and the girls all get knives and sit in a circle facing outwards, which is remarkably intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah, there are surprisingly few idiotic moves in this movie for a movie about teenage girls being stalked by a serial killer.
Yeah. And then
However,
one of the girls goes, "I'm hungry," and then she takes the pizza from underneath the dead pizza boy, puts a blanket on top of him, and then just lays the pizza on top of his dead body and starts eating it.
yeah, and the other girls are staring at her horrified, and she's like, "What?"
It is amazing. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to applaud. I was like, bravo! Like that was you gotta give some credit there.
Yeah. She is by far my favorite character. It's the fact that she does that. And she even says something like, "Well, you can't, or there's no sense letting it go to waste," or something like that.
Yeah, or no, yeah, yeah. Isn't she like yeah? She's like, "What? Life goes on."
Well, not for her, because she gets killed pretty quickly after that.
Yeah.
Um,
At least she had some pizza before she went.
yeah. She didn't die on
She
an
was
empty
right.
stomach. She didn't die on an empty stomach, which is all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Okay, meanwhile, the one horny boy goes through the garage, and there he stumbles across the killer's corpse den, I guess? He has a bunch of dead bodies stacked up in the garage, just sort of hanging out.
Yeah, which is odd because then later we cut to him looking at all of them in the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
So
Which I actually
I guess
forgot about another amazing death. Kim, the mean girl,
yeah.
she goes off with her boyfriend to have sex in the garage. And I forget why exactly she leaves, but she leaves for a bit, and then she comes back and is trying to start to have sex with him, and then discovers he doesn't have a head.
Yeah. Oh, Shaun of the Dead. Like, bleh.
and then the killer basically walks around the car and just gets inside and just starts stabbing her while she's just screaming next to his dead body.
Yeah. See, that's not a good way to go.
No, she should have gotten out of that
Would've been
car.
better for the pizza.
She shouldn't have just sat around there waiting for someone to come kill her. But so the one horny boy runs through the garage, goes by the pool, and then gets stabbed by the drill. And then meanwhile, the other horny boy is running to Val's house, but Val's not listening because she's watching like Dracula or something.
Something.
Yeah. And apparently
It's because they're trying like with many other aspects of this film, they're trying to ape the sequence from Halloween, where Jamie Lee Curtis is watching scary movies on TV.
Yeah. And so she apparently is listening so intently that she doesn't notice the banging on her door. And this gives the killer enough time to run from the one side of Trish's house all the way around the outside, all the way back over to Val's house, and the horny boy literally sees him coming and just keeps banging on the door.
He's like, "Come on!"
Yeah,
it was such a good plan too. It was a noble effort. They were like, one of us is almost definitely going to die, but we're going to do this because one of us will be able to get free. And they did because it's a little suburban house that the killer could jog around. It's not.
And he could have just gone to the house after after Val's house, or or a
couple blocks away. Why does it have to be this particular neighbor that helps you?
And then the killer tackles him, at which point Val finally notices that there's some sound coming from outside, gets up, walks to the front door, looks through the window, sees no one there, and is just like, whatever. I guess I'll go back down. Oh, this movie's amazing.
Val doesn't have much of a healthy sense of suspicion in this movie.
No. Val lacks situational awareness to a surprising degree. So then the killer brings the horny boy's dead bodies back to his kill den and discovers that he does not have enough space in the trunk of the car to fit them all. And it's kind of like...
Yeah, which is the second funniest line in the movie when he's looking over them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Shit.
I know. He's like, what am I going to do now?
Yes, again, it's just, yeah.
He should have kept the phone repair woman's van. He would have had way more space in that.
There you go. See, this is...
Mm-hmm.
And you know that that's exactly what was running through his head right at that moment. But like other killers have all like these, crazy delusions or sick motivations. Like he's, you know that at that point he was like, man, I really should have stolen a different car. Like this is just not enough space for.
Yeah. But yeah, and then he chases he chases Trish and her friend upstairs. Kills her friend, and Trish winds up hiding in the closet. Inside a garment bag.
Which works!
Which, even though it's a clear garment bag, and he can see her hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that was.
But it works because he drags her friend's dead body downstairs and sticks it in the refrigerator, I guess to keep it preserved for whenever he can get the telephone repair woman's van back.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, why the fuck did he put her in the fridge? Why didn't he drag her the extra 10 feet to the garage with the others? It was just that one gag, which is the third funniest gag in the movie.
But yeah, so the girl's gym teacher thinks something's wrong at their house and calls Val and asks her if anything's going on. And Val's like, "No, there's absolutely nothing going wrong. Oh, well, I did hear some screaming earlier. Or actually, my sister heard some screaming earlier. But other than that, it looks completely fine."
And
then Courtney, Val's sister, who's wanted to go to the slumber party for the entire night, runs off, and Val follows her into Trish's house,
where they proceed to wander around for a solid 15 minutes or so, while there is a serial killer, a couple of dead bodies, and some frightened survivors, hiding out in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
And they see and hear absolutely nothing the entire time.
Yeah, it is. Again, Val lacks situational awareness. And apparently the killer is really good at cleaning because of the fact that there isn't blood literally everywhere in that house. Like, he has killed so many people in that house and dragged so many bodies all over it, and yet no blood anywhere.
But you know what? But again, I buy that from this guy, that he would take the time. He would take the time to clean up afterwards, because it just wouldn't be professional not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, well, Courtney decides. Well, first she wants some beer. And so she goes to the fridge and is trying to beg Val to let her drink a beer. And so she keeps opening the fridge, and the one girl's dead body keeps almost falling out of the fridge. And then Val keeps getting her to shut it. until
without seeing, and like this is how stupid I am, is that I was watching that. It's like, wouldn't she feel the weight of the body pressing against the door? And then I realized that, is that really the problem that I have with this sequence? Is that the part of it that's unrealistic to me? As I know, she would totally feel that this totally destroyed any credibility that this sequence would have otherwise.
Yeah. Well, then finally the dead body falls out, and Courtney runs away screaming, and then Val runs away screaming, and Val runs to the basement for some reason, and Courtney hides under the couch. And then the killer, since he, I guess, can't find Trish, comes up with the most brilliant plan ever to wait until she comes out of hiding. He drags the pizza boy's body to the basement and throws it on top of Val, who's trying to get out of the basement at that time, and then pulls the blanket over himself and just lies there waiting for Trish to come out.
And he looks so pleased with himself as he's doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Like he has this huge smile on his face. He's so satisfied. He's like, just pulls the blanket over himself, just comfortably lies back.
Okay, at that point, Val is searching around the basement, which there are weapons everywhere in that basement. Like, that is...
Yes.
Someone built an armory in that basement, which is why did Trish, like, bothering with teeny tiny knives when there's, like, literally hatchets everywhere in that basement? Which I remember...
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, why? Well, you gotta save the machete for the final act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's a scene where Val is like looking at this like little drill scene, like trying to figure out if she could use it to hunt him. There's a hatchet literally on the wall right in front of her. And then she finds the circular saw, and she's like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna get this shit done." And she runs up the stairs, only to be shot or snapped back by the circular saw's cord. Oh, Val. Again, not having the situational awareness. I'm sure there was another extension cord down there that she could have attached to it.
There must have been. I just wonder what it must have been like watching the final, the crew watching the final cut of this movie, and the editors looking at each other and, I thought you were going to cut that, man. No, I thought you were going to cut it. It clearly serves no purpose to the story. That entire 2 minutes should not still be in the movie. Why is it still in the movie?
Poor Val. She kind of gets shit on in this movie.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the gym coach, or the basketball coach, shows up, and she pulls the sheet off of the killer, who's then like, finally a new victim. And she grabs a fireplace poker and starts beating him with it.
Which does absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And then
the worst defensive weapon.
And then out of nowhere runs Trish with a knife and just stabs him in the back.
Which also does nothing somehow. Because again, this is Mike Myers' rules. You cannot be harmed until you break him into multiple pieces.
Yeah, which at that gives the killer the opportunity to off the gym teacher, and then Val emerges triumphant from the basement with her machete, and they have a bit of a standoff for a while, which results in the fight moving to the outside of the pool. And then Val takes a giant swing with that machete and just chops the end of the drill off.
Which is a metaphor for her emasculating the symbol of destructive, toxic masculinity, which he was using to harm all of the women in the movie.
Yeah, the drill is a penis.
I understand these things.
the drill is a penis. This movie is blatant about the fact that that drill is a penis.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and then she cuts it off, and then cuts his hand off.
and then throws him in the pool. And then they're all having their like, oh well, we won victory lap of, hooray, the horror has ended. And of course he emerges from the pool, and then they
Really quietly, I may add.
and lunges at them, and they just shove that machete right through his body. The end. I feel like
The end, it really does just end there.
Well, yeah.
This is a movie without an epilogue
Mhm.
or a denouement.
Well, we all learned something, which is don't use drills as your penis.
Yeah. Because contrary to what our antagonist says, the girls do not like it.
Mm-hmm. No, they really don't. So what are your final thoughts about the movie? Anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to explore?
Well, what I think this movie is, because it's not, because the killer isn't particularly menacing or threatening, really, but at the same time, for how bland they are, most of the cast are really likable.
Mm-hmm.
None of, again, yeah, the meanest thing that is done in the movie is the one other girl saying that Val can't come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. Like everybody else is pretty on the level. They're pretty cool-headed. They don't do a lot of stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
They all have the best interests of keeping the group alive at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have their head in the game once shit gets real.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think this is it's less of a scary. It's more like a disaster movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is like if Roland Emmerich made a low-budget slasher movie, where the bad guy is really just a destructive force of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, like watching it, I was like, I don't want these people to die, even though I'm not really frightened by what's killing them. So, on its own, and obviously parts of it are really silly, and don't make a lot of sense. But I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a badly made movie. I don't think it's by and large a badly acted movie. I think for what it is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, there's crazy stuff in this movie, and it's really short, and it's highly enjoyable. Like, and this is a great party movie. Like,
Oh yeah,
if you
can't
haven't had,
imagine what this would be to just throw on.
yeah, I've definitely or screened this at parties, and like people are dying at everything. Um, it is the greatest movie, or it is a great movie to like just throw on when you have a bunch of friends over and want to watch something that's, you know, that level of enjoyable.
Yeah, and anytime the characters do something dumb, you can throw popcorn at the screen. Like, oh, come on! I also did the thing I had the most mixed feelings about is just how unapologetically exploitative it is.
Mhm.
Like there are lingering shots of TNA in this movie.
There's that one shot where like the camera literally
Yes.
goes down to make sure you see her butt and then goes back up.
Yeah, very very necessary cinematography. Yeah, and
I think that
normally
I think that it was originally supposed to be satirizing horror movies that rely on TNA and then just wound up going way overshooting the mark.
yeah, and I'm and even in cases like that, I'm inclined to be skeptical of this. And this is the kind of thing that I tend to not like to make excuses for in movies. But I think in the final analysis, like this is a movie not only made for, horny teenage boys, but it's a movie that horny teenage boys would make, and for all intents and purposes did.
Mhm.
So, I get it. I get why that stuff's in there. And um, it's mostly over with by the end of the before people start dying, or before people start dying at the slumber party.
Mhm.
There's no there are no sexy torn clothes of the victims,
Yeah.
um,
With the
which I appreciate.
exception of the one girl in the blue nightie, everyone's wearing pretty sensible slumber party attire.
Yeah, yeah, and are behaving like normal, not not written as male fantasies teenage girls. They're
Yeah.
just kind of goofing off with each other, with the exception of that one scene. Um, so yeah, and I think it makes an interesting case study to compare it to Halloween, because it's not significantly worse made than Halloween.
Hmm.
Because people single this out about Halloween all the time, is that what makes it stand out is is the cinematography and the writing, that it's a really well crafted slasher movie.
Hmm.
Um, but this is too, and this has a lot of the same uh, tropes and beats as Halloween. Um, but Halloween is really scary,
Hmm.
and this isn't.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's interesting, and I think that has to do mostly with how the villain is treated. Again, in this movie, Russ, whatever his name was, is just is just a dude, um, in a denim jacket,
Hmm.
with a drill.
Hmm.
Whereas Michael Myers in that first Halloween movie, the way he's talked about, the way that he's shot, he's like this embodiment of pure evil.
Hmm.
Um, and that gives it a little bit of thematic heft there, and that makes him sort of disturbing to think about. It makes you think about um, how frightening it is that something so monstrous could be encompassed by the same species as that we belong to. Um, so I think it's interesting that you can get two movies that are so superficially similar, and that don't have a significant difference in the quality of the filmmaking that went into them, but that one of them is just kind of a goofy good time, and one of them is legitimately disturbing and really suspenseful.
Hmm.
So I think that's something really interesting to think about.
Yeah. I think um there's a unique divide between uh what we would consider great horror and as opposed to, again, a goofy good time. Like Scream, for example, is a movie that there's a lot of stuff in there that is ridiculous and silly, but it is done in such a way as to be completely terrifying. Um, and and again, something like this, um, it is just a goofy good time where there are a lot of there are a lot of silly jokes and strange moments and just banana stuff going on. Um,
Yeah, and I just like that it was such a well done silly good time, that I don't need to call it a silly good time as an excuse for just doing a bad job of making a movie. This movie knew exactly what it wanted to be.
mhm.
Um, or in part, there's the stuff we discussed earlier. But
Mhm.
it knew what it wanted to be, and achieved that about as well as you could. So I feel like I've got to give it props for that.
Yeah, like I said, this is a movie that I have shown at parties, and people love it. Um, and that the fact that it is sort of a movie that the audience can laugh along with as people are getting murdered and enjoy for all of the silly, campy aspects of it is to its credit, as opposed to being like some sort of detriment to it, that it isn't as sort of
Abs-
pitch serious as as say Godzilla was.
Sure.
All right. So let's get to our final segment, best death. So who had the best death out of everyone tonight?
I think I've got to go with the neighbor. What's his name? Who's on a snail hunt, and has been which is a thing apparently,
Yeah.
which you're allowed to just wander into other people's garages for. Yeah, and he's hunched over one, and is lifting aloft whatever his weapon was. He's been counting them off, and he's got up to like 49, and so he lifts up his thing. It's like 50, and then gets stabbed through the neck with the drill. It's just it's really good timing.
As much as I want to say the pizza boy, I'm gonna have to go with the phone repair woman. Like, there is something about the fact that he's just walking along and is dragged inside that van, and then stabbed through the head with the drill, and no one notices. That is just that tells you everything you need to know about what movie you're watching. Is that right there?
It really does.
All right. As always, I've been Peter.
As always, I've been Tim.
And thanks for tuning in. Good night.
If you can.